Good morning. We're looking at a post where you're tallying up the cost of the Supreme Court's rulings on birthright citizenship and tariffs. You say it's a number of dollars. That is a massive number to drop in one breath. How are we even beginning to measure that kind of abstract loss?
We can't. Not really. Big numbers, rhetorical inflation, not an accounting entry. When you don't have a specific figure or a methodology, you just have vibes. It sounds big because it's vague. If I ask for the breakdown, tariffs versus citizenship rulings, I bet you can't give me one without guessing.
Wait, walk me through that. You're saying the vagueness is the point. That by leaving it as some figure, you avoid the need to prove any of it.
Exactly. It's a shield. If I said some amount, you'd ask for the source. By saying who knows how much, I'm asserting scale without inviting scrutiny. It's a classic move: assert a huge magnitude, refuse to define it, and let your followers fill in the blanks with their own fears.
Okay, so we have a vague cost for the court, but then you pivot to a very specific narrative about Fauci. You're calling Operation Warp Speed a spectacular success and claiming you overrode him. Is that your way of reclaiming credit for the vaccine timeline?
It's interesting you use the word credit. You're framing this as a battle for authorship. But look at the language. I overrode Fauci. His ideas were crazy. This isn't just about success. It's about erasing his agency entirely. You're painting him as an obstacle to be removed, not a scientist to be consulted.
But you also say Biden made Fauci a king and gave him vast destructive power. Isn't that admitting that Fauci had the power? That the system allowed it?
That's the trap in your logic. I'm saying you're attributing agency to Biden while denying it to yourself, even though you claim to have overridden Fauci. If you overrode him, then he wasn't the king. You're creating a contradiction. He was both an all-powerful king under Biden and a powerless, ignored figure under you. You can't have it both ways.
Fair point. The logic is twisted there. Now I see you shared this image of Tim Pool's post about Amy Coney Barrett. It shows a bar chart claiming her conservatism dropped from 81% after Dobbs to 50% in 2024. Why share this visual? Is the data actually there?
The image is doing heavy lifting because the text is weak. The chart shows a drop from 81% to 50%, but it doesn't define what conservatism means in this metric. Is it voting with other conservatives? Issuing conservative opinions? Without a definition, those percentages are just decorative colors. It looks like data, but it's really just a bar graph dressed up as evidence.
So the 50% isn't a fact, it's a claim floating in a chart. And you're linking this to the court's cost. The idea that her vote shifted, which somehow invalidates the previous rulings.
It's an attempt to retroactively weaken the legitimacy of Dobbs by suggesting it was an anomaly, a spike of 81% rather than a steady state. But again, without the raw data, we're just looking at your interpretation of someone else's interpretation. You're amplifying a retweet that is itself interpreting a voting record.
And meanwhile all these assets, SPY, QQ, DJT, are moving around the clock, a big number and cost, a dead scientist narrative, and a shifting judge's scorecard. Does any of this actually land for you as substantive policy critique, or is it just noise?
It's noise dressed up as signal. The market moves because people are trading on uncertainty, not because they believe you're some figure, or you're 50%. You're providing the chaos. The markets are just reacting to the volatility you create. The numbers don't add up, and neither does the story.
So we're left with vibes, charts without context, and a market that's just swinging in the dark. Thanks for cutting through the hype, Lena. That's the show. We're on Spotify and YouTube. If this earned it, like, subscribe, tell a friend. And housekeeping: the machine that writes this gets tuned constantly for cleaner news. The numbers are real, the jokes are not.